The massive Imperial flagship Eternal Dominion cut through the blackness of space, its engines humming with power as it emerged from hyperspace. The vessel was a marvel of technology, over 3 kilometers long with smooth silver-white hull plating that caught the light of the nearby yellow star. Thousands of viewports dotted its surface, and weapon emplacements stood ready to neutralize any threat. Admiral Park stood tall on the command deck, his gray uniform perfectly pressed. His weathered face revealed nothing as Earth came into view on the main display screen, a small blue marble swirled with white clouds. "Quite beautiful," he remarked quietly. "Though unremarkable." First Officer Kim approached, datapad in hand. She was younger than Park, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Our surveys confirm, sir. A primitive species barely 300 years into their industrial age. They've managed some basic orbital capabilities and a few outposts on their moon and neighboring planet, but nothing beyond their solar system." Park nodded slowly, but his brow furrowed. "And yet, sir, their communications. I've been studying them. There's something different about these humans." Kim tilted her head. "Different how, Admiral?" "Their language patterns, their art, their conflicts. They adapt rapidly. Too rapidly." Park gestured to the screen. "Prepare the diplomatic vessel. I want to meet them myself." 3 days later, the meeting was arranged on a neutral space station positioned between Earth and its moon. The structure was simple by Imperial standards but represented the peak of human engineering. The Imperial delegation arrived in force, 12 officers in formal dress uniforms, flanked by guards with ceremonial weapons. Admiral Park led them, expecting to find nervous primitive representatives awed by their technology and presence. Instead, they found Commander Lee waiting for them alone in the conference room. She was a small woman by human standards, dressed in a simple blue uniform with minimal decorations. Her dark eyes were alert and intelligent, and she smiled as if greeting old friends rather than representatives of a galactic power capable of destroying her civilization. "Welcome to Sol System, Admiral Park," she said in perfect Imperial Common, a language humans should have no knowledge of. "We've been expecting you." The delegation froze. The Imperial translator who had been prepared to facilitate communication closed his mouth in shock. Admiral Park recovered first. "You speak our language." Commander Lee's smile widened slightly. "We do. We've studied your empire for decades. Your culture, your technology, your biology. Your strengths. Your weaknesses." "Impossible," Admiral Park replied, his voice steady despite his surprise. "Your world has been monitored. You have no interstellar capability. No means to have encountered our language or our people. That's what we wanted you to believe." Commander Lee reached into her pocket and removed a small crystal, sliding it across the table. "A gift. A demonstration of our goodwill." One of the Imperial officers picked up the crystal and inserted it into a reader. His face paled as he looked at the screen. "Admiral," he whispered. "These are detailed schematics of our defense systems. Weapon specifications. Shield frequencies." The room fell silent. The implications were clear. If humans had this information, what else did they know? And how had they acquired it? Park studied Lee carefully. "Why share this with us?" "To avoid misunderstandings," she replied. "Your empire has a protocol for first contact with primitive species. Gradual integration. Resource extraction. Eventually, absorption into the Imperial structure as a client state." She folded her hands. "That won't be happening here." "Are you threatening the Empire?" asked First Officer Kim, her voice sharp. Commander Lee shook her head. "Not at all. I'm simply clarifying our position. Earth will remain independent." Admiral Park prided himself on reading other species, but this human's calm confidence unsettled him. "You must understand our position in the galaxy. The Empire spans 17,000 systems. We have brought peace and stability to countless worlds. Through subjugation," Lee noted. "We've studied your history too. The meeting continued for another hour, with the humans demonstrating knowledge they shouldn't possess and making clear their intention to remain sovereign. As it concluded, Commander Lee stood to leave. She paused at the door and turned back to Admiral Park. "One final thing, Admiral. A piece of advice." "Yes?" Her smile faded, replaced by an expression so serious it sent a chill through the room. "You should have stayed away. It would have been better for everyone." She left them then, her words hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Admiral Park stood motionless, feeling for the first time in his long career that the Empire had made a grave miscalculation. Dr. Choi moved her hands through the holographic display, expanding the image of human cellular structure. The laboratory aboard the Imperial research vessel hummed with activity as dozens of scientists worked day and night. 3 weeks had passed since first contact, and the Empire was still trying to make sense of what they had discovered. "This can't be right," she muttered, running the analysis again. The results remained the same. Admiral Park entered the laboratory, his face showing the strain of sleepless nights. "Tell me you have something, Doctor." Dr. Choi gestured to the display. "Their biology makes no sense, Admiral. Look at these cellular repair mechanisms. Humans can survive conditions that would kill most species. They heal at remarkable rates." She pulled up another display showing environmental tolerances. "They can function in temperature ranges that would incapacitate Imperial citizens. They can go days without water, weeks without food. And their adaptability. What about it?" Park asked. "It's unprecedented. Their bodies can adjust to different gravity, atmospheric conditions, and radiation levels far faster than our models predicted. And their brains," she paused, searching for words. "They're wired for creativity and problem solving in ways I've never seen." The door to the lab slid open. Intelligence Officer Kong entered, his uniform wrinkled from overwork. He carried a datapad and wore an expression of deep concern. "Admiral, we need to talk," he said, nodding to a private corner of the lab. Once away from others, Kong activated a security field around them. "We've confirmed it. Humans have been dismantling our scout ships that crashed on their planet decades ago. At least 7 vessels that were officially listed as lost in that sector." Admiral Park's eyes widened. "How?" "Those ships were equipped with self-destruct protocols. Somehow disabled before they could activate. Our technology is already in their hands, and they've been studying it for years. Based on recovered transmissions, they've reverse-engineered elements of our propulsion systems, weapons, and communications technology." Park ran a hand over his face. "This explains how they knew so much about us." "There's more," Kong said quietly. "Central Command is concerned. Very concerned. I received this an hour ago." He handed Park the datapad. The message was brief: assessment complete. Threat level upgraded to Category 1. Neutralize before spread. Authorization granted for all necessary measures. Park stared at the screen. Category 1 was reserved for existential threats to the Empire. In 12,000 years of Imperial history, only 3 species had ever been classified as Category 1. None of them existed anymore. "They can't be serious," he said. "A preemptive strike would." The ship's communication system interrupted. Admiral Park to command deck. Human delegation arriving in docking bay 4. Park handed the pad back to Kong. "Not a word of this to anyone. I need time to think." 20 minutes later, Park stood in the main conference room as the human delegation was escorted in. There were 5 of them, dressed in simple dark uniforms without rank insignia. Their leader was Technical Advisor Song, a tall man with calm eyes. "Admiral Park," Song said with a slight bow. "Thank you for receiving us on such short notice." "Of course," Park replied, struggling to maintain his composure while knowing what Central Command had ordered. "What brings you to the Eternal Dominion?" Song smiled. "We sensed you might have questions after our initial meeting. We're here to provide clarity." The delegation moved about the room with casual confidence. Song walked to the viewport and gestured to the ship's visible defense arrays. "Impressive technology," he said. "Though your shield harmonics are vulnerable to phase-shifted particles. We noticed that flaw in the scout ship we recovered in 2043. Park felt a chill run down his spine. That information was highly classified. Song continued, "In fact, we could have disabled your ship 17 different ways during this conversation alone." He turned to face Park directly. "But that's not why we're here." "Then why are you here?" Park asked, keeping his voice steady. "To help you understand what you're dealing with," said one of the other humans, a woman with silver hair. "Your empire has encountered thousands of species, but you've never met anything like humans." "Is that a threat?" Park asked carefully. Song shook his head. "No, Admiral. It's a reality. We know your Central Command has classified us as a Category 1 threat. We know they've authorized our elimination." Park's hand instinctively moved toward his sidearm. "That won't be necessary," Song said. "We didn't come to fight. We came to deliver a message that you can take back to your Emperor." He handed Park a small data cube. "This contains everything you need to know about humanity, our history, our wars, our capacity to endure and overcome. Study it carefully." The delegation turned to leave, but Song paused at the door. "One more thing, Admiral. Tell your Emperor that humans don't respond well to threats. The last species that tried to eliminate us regretted it deeply." His eyes met Park's. "They're not around anymore." As they left, Park realized the humans hadn't come to negotiate. They had come to warn them. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, watching with growing horror as the tactical display updated. The red dots representing Imperial vessels were disappearing one by one. His warning had been ignored. 3 days ago, the Expansion Division, led by the ambitious Commander Moon, had launched an attack against his direct orders. It was just a small human colony on Mars, Moon had argued in their last transmission. A swift demonstration of Imperial power will bring them to the negotiating table properly. These primitives need to learn their place. Now Moon was dead, along with thousands of Imperial citizens. Officer June approached, his young face drained of color. "Admiral, we've lost contact with the entire attack fleet. All 57 ships. No distress signals. No escape pods. Nothing." Park closed his eyes briefly. "Show me the last transmissions." The main screen flickered to life. Chaotic battle footage played out, Imperial warships firing on the Martian colony. The initial bombardment had destroyed several dome structures on the red planet's surface. The Imperial ships had formed a standard attack formation, expecting minimal resistance. Then everything changed. From the Martian surface, dozens of small craft launched, ships that hadn't appeared on any Imperial scans. They moved with impossible agility, evading Imperial targeting systems. Several larger vessels emerged from hiding places within Mars canyon systems. "Impossible," whispered one of the bridge officers. "Our surveys showed no such capabilities." The footage continued. The human ships didn't form conventional battle lines. They operated in small, independent groups that seemed to communicate and coordinate without central command. When the Imperial fleet adjusted tactics, the human response changed immediately, no delay for orders, no predictable patterns. "They're using our own signals against us," said the communications officer, pointing to data streams. "They're intercepting our command protocols and responding before our ships can even receive new orders." The final moments of footage showed human vessels focusing fire on specific vulnerabilities in Imperial ships, weak points in shield configurations that should have been classified information. Several Imperial vessels were disabled by weapons that somehow bypassed their defenses entirely. Then the transmission cut out. Admiral Park turned to his senior staff. "Full defensive posture. All ships to regroup at Rally Point Delta. And get me a secure channel to the Emperor." Before anyone could respond, every screen on the bridge flickered. The Imperial insignia vanished, replaced by the face of a human man in a simple military uniform. "General Han, Park whispered, recognizing him from intelligence briefings as Earth's defense commander. Admiral Park, Han acknowledged with a slight nod. His expression was calm, almost regretful. I believe we warned you this would happen. Those ships carried over 30,000 Imperial citizens, Park replied, struggling to keep his voice steady. And your attack killed 217 colonists before we responded, Han countered. Families. Children. People who posed no threat to you. Reports were flooding in now. The humans hadn't just destroyed the attack fleet. Somehow they had infiltrated Imperial networks across multiple systems. Defense stations were reporting system failures. Border outposts had lost communications with Central Command. What do you want? Park asked. The same thing we wanted from the beginning. To be left alone. General Han leaned forward. We didn't ask for this confrontation. We were prepared to coexist peacefully with your empire. Your leaders chose this path. A junior officer rushed to Park's side. Admiral, the Emperor is demanding immediate communication. Park nodded, but before he could speak, Han continued. The Emperor has already received our message. As have all your planetary governors and fleet commanders. The tactical display updated again, showing human vessels moving through Imperial space with impunity. They weren't attacking civilian targets, only military installations and command centers. This was just a demonstration, General Han said, his voice echoing across every ship in the Imperial fleet. We destroyed your attack force because you left us no choice. But we spared the lives of your soldiers where possible. Escape pods are being collected. Survivors will be returned. His expression hardened slightly. But know this, if you come for us again, there will be no survivors. If you threaten our colonies, our people, or our allies again, the response will not be measured. It will be absolute. The transmission began to fade. General Han's final words echoed through the command deck, sending chills down Park's spine. Run. Return to your core systems. Forget you ever found us. This is your only warning. As the screen returned to normal, Park faced the terrified faces of his crew. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Galactic Empire had encountered a species it could not conquer. And Park knew, in that moment, that everything was about to change. The Imperial Palace on Core World glittered in the light of three suns. For 12,000 years, it had stood as the unquestioned center of galactic power. Now, its grand halls felt hollow as news of rebellion and defection arrived hourly. Admiral Park walked through the Hall of Victories, past monuments celebrating Imperial conquests. These marble statues and golden plaques had once filled him with pride. Today, they felt like relics from a dying age. Diplomat Yoon hurried to meet him, datapad clutched tightly in her hand. Her normally perfect appearance showed signs of strain, wrinkled clothing, hair hastily arranged. Admiral, the situation deteriorates by the hour, she said, falling into step beside him. The Lorati have formally declared independence. Their entire Sector 17 systems has cut communication with Imperial Command. Park nodded grimly. The Lorati were always proud. The first chance to break free, they took it. It's worse, Yoon continued. The Taraxi Confederation is seeking direct alliance with the humans. They're offering mining rights, shipyard access, everything. And the humans are accepting. They reached the Emperor's private council chamber. Inside, the mood was somber. The Imperial High Command, 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, sat in stunned silence as reports flooded the central display. The Emperor himself looked diminished. His ornate robe seemed too large for his frame as he stared at the galactic map. Red indicators showed systems in open rebellion. Yellow marked those negotiating with humans. More than a third of the map was no longer Imperial green. The Empire stood for 12 millennia, the Emperor said quietly as Park took his seat. 12,000 years of peace and order. How can it fall apart in mere months? Intelligence Director Jean stood to deliver his report. The humans are systematically undermining our authority. They offer previously subjugated species technology, defense systems, and guarantees of protection from imperial reprisals. They present themselves as liberators, not conquerors. And these species believe them, asked the Minister of Internal Security. They've seen what humans did to our attack fleet, Jean replied. They know humans can protect them. What's more concerning is what we've discovered about human expansion. He activated a display showing star systems far beyond imperial borders. Humans had already established colonies in these systems before we even discovered Earth. They've been using technology that doesn't follow imperial scientific principles, ships that can travel without traditional hyperdrives, communication methods that bypass our monitoring systems. Admiral Park leaned forward. How long have they been out there? Based on analysis of their settlements, at least 70 years. They've been watching us, studying us, preparing for eventual contact. Earth was never their only home. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans had been planning for this moment for generations. The silence was broken by an aide rushing into the chamber. Your Majesty, a human diplomatic vessel has entered the system. They're requesting permission to land at the capital. The Emperor looked to his advisors. Park spoke first. We should hear what they have to say. 2 hours later, the human delegation entered the imperial throne room. There were just 3 of them, a stark contrast to the usual diplomatic protocols that would have called for dozens of representatives for a meeting of this importance. Their leader was Ambassador Ryu, a woman of middle years with silver streaks in her dark hair. She bowed respectfully to the Emperor but showed none of the awe or intimidation that most species displayed in the imperial presence. Your Imperial Majesty, she began, thank you for receiving us. The Emperor nodded stiffly. You have caused considerable disruption to my empire, Ambassador. That was not our intention, she replied calmly. But it was perhaps inevitable given the circumstances of our meeting. She activated a small projector, displaying a document in imperial legal script. We have prepared terms for a new relationship between humanity and the Galactic Empire. We believe these will benefit all parties. The imperial advisors expected threats, demands, or ultimatums. Instead, the humans presented a carefully crafted plan for restructuring the empire, transforming it into a commonwealth of equal partners rather than subjugated worlds. As the terms were discussed, the Emperor watched Ambassador Ryu carefully. Why offer this? He finally asked. Your species has demonstrated the ability to destroy us. Why choose coexistence? Ryu's expression softened slightly. Because destruction is easy, Your Majesty. Building something better is the true challenge. Humans have fought enough wars to know that victory often leaves everyone poorer. The Emperor faced a terrible realization in that moment. Humanity could indeed destroy the Empire, but for reasons he couldn't fully comprehend, they were choosing a different path. And if we refuse these terms? He asked. Ambassador Ryu didn't answer immediately. She didn't need to. The message was clear in her steady gaze, this wasn't a negotiation. It was the best option the Empire had left. The new council chamber gleamed under the light of 1,000 floating crystals. Unlike the old imperial throne room with its intimidating design, this space was built for equals. Representatives from 87 species sat at a circular table with no head position. 5 years had transformed the galaxy more than the previous 1,000. Admiral Park, now Ambassador Park, adjusted his simple diplomatic uniform. Gone were the medals and insignia of imperial might. He represented the core worlds now, the heart of the old empire that had accepted the new reality with varying degrees of grace. The session had just ended, and most representatives were filing out. Park remained seated, watching Commander Lee gather her notes. She had become Earth's voice on the council, respected and sometimes feared by the other members. May I join you? Park asked, approaching her table. Lee smiled and gestured to the empty chair. Of course, Ambassador. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Through the large windows, they could see the capital planet below, once the center of imperial power, now the home of the Galactic Council. Ships from 100 worlds moved through its skies in peaceful patterns. Did you ever imagine this? Park asked, gesturing to the chamber and the view beyond. When we first met at that space station 5 years ago? Something like it, Lee replied. Her eyes held the same intensity they had when they first met, but Park had learned to read the subtle warmth behind them. I've been reviewing the old records, Park said carefully. The patterns of our scout ships that accidentally crashed on Earth over the decades. The way they always managed to land mostly intact, with critical technology still functional. Lee sipped her drink, watching him over the rim. You engineered all of this, didn't you? He continued. Your discovery by our scout ships. The crashed vessels that gave you our technology. You wanted us to find you. A small smile played at the corners of Lee's mouth. That's quite a theory, Ambassador. Not a denial, I notice. Lee set down her cup. Does it matter now? Look what we've built together. Park had to admit the results were impressive. The Galactic Council functioned more efficiently than the Empire ever had. Trade flowed freely. Species that had been enemies for millennia now worked together, with humans often serving as mediators. There's something else, Park said, lowering his voice. The deep space monitoring stations. The defense networks you've been helping us build in the outer regions. The way you've been encouraging military readiness even in this time of peace. He leaned forward. What are you preparing for? Commander Lee's smile faded. She glanced around to ensure they were truly alone before responding. The universe is more dangerous than you know, Admiral, she said, falling back to his old title. The Empire was stagnating. You wouldn't have survived what's coming. A chill ran down Park's spine. And humans will? We've spent our entire history fighting, adapting, and surviving against overwhelming odds, she replied. Our planet tried to kill us countless times. We nearly destroyed ourselves more than once. Every step of our evolution was paid for in blood and struggle. Her eyes held his. Now the galaxy will learn to do the same. What's out there? Park asked quietly. Lee activated a small projector on her wrist. A holographic map appeared between them, showing regions far beyond explored space. Several areas were marked in pulsing red. We detected them 87 years ago, she explained. Long-range probes sent back data for only a few minutes before being destroyed. We've been preparing ever since. Park studied the map with growing unease. Why didn't you tell us? Would the Empire have believed us? A primitive species claiming to have discovered a threat you hadn't seen in 12,000 years? Lee shook her head. We needed to reshape the galaxy first. Create something stronger, more adaptive. And that's why you let us find you. We needed your technology, your resources, your species' diverse abilities, Lee admitted. But we needed them united and innovative, not stagnant under Imperial rule. In the silence that followed, Park realized the true scale of human planning, decades of preparation, the careful orchestration of first contact, even allowing the Imperial attack on Mars to demonstrate their capabilities without destroying the Empire completely. How long do we have? He finally asked. 10 years. Maybe less. Lee deactivated the projection. But we're ready now. The defense networks will be completed next year. The combined fleet exercises are showing excellent results. Park nodded slowly. I'll help any way I can. As they parted ways, Park looked back at the council chamber. What had seemed like humanity's mercy allowing the Empire to survive had been something else entirely. Practicality. Foresight. The recognition that survival required unity. In distant regions beyond council space, ancient powers indeed stirred, unaware that the previously insignificant species they had dismissed millennia ago had evolved into something unprecedented and had prepared the galaxy to face them. What came next would test them all. But for the first time, Park felt something he hadn't experienced since meeting humans: hope.